Hi guys, it's Marc Zicree, Mr. Sci-Fi, also Marc Zicree of Space Command. But for the sake of this conversation, I am Marc Zicree of the Smurfs, He-Man, Super Friends, Real Ghostbusters, Black Star, The Littles, on and on. And that is because in my 20s, I was the god of animation. My friend Michael Reeves, whom I met at Ted Sturgeon's writing class, he was the teaching assistant. He and I became close friends. I was in college at the time, and Ted, of course, Ted Sturgeon became a mentor and friend, and Michael Reeves became one of my closest friends, and he brought me into television. He was writing animation at the time, and so I started writing at first in collaboration with him and then on my own. And it was a very, very lucrative and very good way to get into television. And then, of course, I jumped over to live action in the years ahead. So at the same time, by the way, that I was writing animation, I was also writing the Twilight Zone companion. So it was a very fun and full life. And I married Elaine, met her when I was 20, married her when I was 21. And I think I met Michael 1 month before I met Elaine, so in 1975. So therein hangs the tale, but here's the cool part. My friend Eric Foss sent me a radio interview I did talking about animation with Michael Reeves from 1982. I was in my 20s, it's 40 years ago. And so we're going to play that entire interview in a moment. It'll be amazing. By the way, this is what I looked like back in those days. So look at that. Matinee idol Marc Zicree. So... Sorry, girls, he's married. But here's the story behind that. It's pretty fun. When I was a teenager, my mom bought a radio. It had an FM setting, which I'd never had before. I was twirling the dial one night, and I came upon people talking about science fiction. And it was a radio show on KPFK, the local Pacifica outlet, called Hour 25, and it would run from, I think, 10 to midnight or 10 till 1 in the morning. And it was hosted by Mike Hodel and Mitchell Harding, who at that point was using the pseudonym John Henry Thong, and it was a science fiction interview show, and I'd never heard any of my heroes interviewed, not Theodore Sturgeon or any of they had everybody on the show, Ursula K. Le Guin, Frank Herbert, on and on, and it was an education in science fiction. And that's where I first heard Harlan Ellison talking about the Clarion Writers Workshop, which I attended when I was 19 and sold my first short story to Damon Knight, and that began my writing career in earnest. But at the same time, I was actively, making radio plays, doing all sorts of stuff, shooting student films. And so when I was 18, Hour 25 broadcast my radio play Lobotomy, which was a satire of science fiction conventions and science fiction movies and TV shows and writers and everything. And at some point I'll find the complete version of that and share it with you. But in the meantime, at that time when I was a teenager, I got to know the hosts of Hour 25. Now, originally, the driving force behind it was Mike Hodel, who was a big science fiction fan, and his wife, Terry Hodel, and they became friends. And so when I started writing animation, I was invited to come on Hour 25. I was on the show numerous times, and by then, Mel Gilden had taken over the show. I think there was a point where he was doing the show with Mike Hodel. Mel Gilden was a friend. He was also writing animation at the time, and Mel is still a friend, as is Michael. And in the later years, Mike Hodel sadly would die prematurely of a brain tumor, and Terry, too, is no longer with us. But Joe Straczynski took over the show at one point, and Harlan Ellison took it over at one point. And so it was an amazing show for the length of its run. Warren James and his wife took it over and then did it online. They may still be doing it online for all I know. But so Michael Reeves and I, both in our 20s, both ambitious, looking forward. This is before Michael won the Emmy for Batman and the Animated Series, before we both wrote for Star Trek The Next Generation, before all the major things that have come our way ever since, before our life of fame and fortune, or at least as we were just starting our life of fame and fortune. And so this is an interview I have not heard in 40 years, and I'm sure that a lot of what I say will be new to me as well as to you. But here is a blast from the past. Here is a moment frozen in amber. This is Marc Zicree, Michael Reeves, and Mel Gilden having a conversation about animation on Hour 25.
This is OEX-1, ready to initiate launch sequence, over. Roger, OBX control vector Tau Delta. Preparing launch sequence now, over. Roger, control. Log 10 on board computers. Launching immediately, over and out.
And now, step outside time and space as Pacifica Radio presents Hour 25. Science fiction, science fact, and science fantasy. With your hosts, Mike Odell and Mel Gilden, as they present
special guests, interviews, open phones, and more.
Brought to you by
The Group Mind.
On KPFK 90.7 FM, Los Angeles.
What? Are we on? Are we on? Okay, good. Well, actually, most of those people are not here tonight. Mike Odell, for a certainty, is not here tonight. He's in San Diego at the comics convention doing who knows what with who knows who. And so what we have tonight, Michael Reeves, formerly J. Michael Reeves, who is the author of Dark World Detective and various Saturday morning cartoon programs. And with him will be also Marc Zicree, who has also written Saturday morning cartoon programs and is the author of the upcoming book, The Twilight Zone Companion. Michael Reeves, he's loaned the J to somebody else. This is true, isn't it?
Gave it away.
He gave it away.
It's gone. I had a ceremony. There were witnesses.
Tax write-off.
That's right. Yeah.
Is it all? It's legal and everything.
It's legal.
Right?
It's been, given to a charitable foundation.
I've seen that charitable foundation, and it's okay with me. And we also have Marc. Is it Marc Scott Zicree? Is that how we want to do it tonight? Okay. And perhaps later on we may even have Elaine Zicree, who knows, who has promised that she would do the ID. And let me tell you, folks, that could be the most inciting part of this program if we play our cards right.
Yes, half of the people listening could go into puberty simultaneously.
Right here, if they...
Oh, my God.
Remember the Top Brass commercials that Barbara Feldon used to do? Well, anyway, before we get silly about Elaine Zicree...
About anything.
I have part of a letter here that I want to read from someone who signs himself or herself, I have no idea who this person is, only as a faithful fan, and this will serve to somewhat introduce our guests here. That is the word, isn't it? Guests? Uh-huh. Let's see. I thought the express. Now, this person has sent me a photograph, a drawing of some Smurfs. Very surprised Smurfs. I thought the expressions shown here of astonishment, incredulity, and yes, even alarm register perfectly the response the Smurfs might have on learning that they're to be the subjects, however incidentally, of a discussion on Hour 25. And their reaction becomes especially poignant when one realizes that the Smurfs' prime objective as a group is to be left alone. But I'm sure they'll see they have nothing to fear from the group mind, ha, which I think would be very appreciative if you could prevail upon our guest to reveal the precise location of the Smurf village. Now, are you going to do that tonight? Tell us where the Smurf
Well, we'll be
village is?
thrown in the Hanna-Barbera dungeons if we do it.
Yeah.
But if the money's right.
If the money's right?
Yes.
We were talking about doing that. If somebody sends us a $25 or $500 matching fund,
Yes.
we might
Yes.
reveal.
Actually, they might send little blue hitmen to our houses to break
shoot
our
off our
ankles.
toes, yes.
Perhaps we should tell the folks out there exactly what a Smurf is, as far as the two of you.
For the
I mean, keep
two-
it clean, guys.
For
okay?
the 2 or 3 of you who
don't get up at
living
that
on
hour.
Mars.
What
yes.
time is it? What time is it on Saturday
It's
morning?
10:30.
No, I know. I mean, what time are the Smurfs on Saturday
What is it,
morning?
7:30 to 8:30?
I never
and
watched
next
the show.
year,
I don't
next year
know.
it'll be 90 minutes every Saturday morning.
90 minutes of solid entertainment.
Yeah.
What are they? I mean,
They're little blue guys. They're 3 apples tall. If you go into a toy store, you won't see anything but Smurfs.
yeah.
And it's $600 million in American revenues from the toys alone.
They're
and other
basically
products.
they are basically what they are. If we have to talk about them,
Just a bit.
All
Just
right.
some. Just
they
to give the
are
people a reference.
they are a concept created by a Belgian illustrator named Pierre Culliford, who goes by the name of Peo, and his collaborator Yvonne Delaporte, and they've been comic books in Europe for what's about 20 years?
In France.
Something like 25
years. In
Yeah.
France
In
and
France.
Belgium and everywhere.
But I mean, it's written in French.
Yes.
Yeah.
They were called Schtroumpfs over there. And then, they were marketed over here, and they started marketing little toys and everything under the name of Smurfs. And Fred Silverman, one fateful morning...
Who was, the program director at...
He was president
He
of
was president of
NBC.
NBC at this
Yes.
time. And he saw his daughter playing with one, and a little light bulb went off over his head.
Little blue light bulb.
Little blue light bulb.
Yes.
And, yes, 25 watt. And took the idea to Joe Barbera over at H&B, and Bill Hanna over at H&B, as we so fondly call the place, and said, how's about it? And at first, they and NBC were very dubious, but they came up with the concept of doing an hour show, animated show, based on the characters. And because, for a number of reasons, the show is somewhat different and probably better than a lot of the Saturday morning cartoons. And also...
In what way? Better.
Well, let me finish
All
my
right.
head.
Do finish the sentence.
Because
I'm sorry.
I can get real distracted here.
Go right ahead.
Also because of the
Since the
merchandising.
operation.
Yes, since the operation.
Yes.
Also because of the merchandising, which you can literally get everything from Smurf hand grenades to. Well, you can get a lot of different Smurf products. There's merchandising it extremely well. Little kids were really ready for it, and the ratings went through the roof. The Smurf show is on Saturday morning. It's like the Dallas of shows. Its ratings are astronomical compared to the other Saturday morning shows. It regularly pulls like a 35 or 40 share.
Really?
Yeah, where like a 28 or 25 is considered hot stuff.
Why?
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 Well-
I mean, what have they got that Super Friends doesn't
Okay,
have,
okay.
say, just as an example?
Okay, first off,
Well, they don't have
they're done better.
You mean the
Hanna-Barbera,
animation is better?
they spent more money
Yeah.
because on the theory that they could run the thing forever in every country in the world and
It has
make a lot of money.
something of a timeless appeal to it.
It's timeless, and also you have to realize the things it was up against, which were mainly just the same
Midland Farm
concepts.
Report and Sunrise.
Well, they would just take
Sylvester.
one idea like the Flintstones and do it over and over and over again in
Yes.
worse and worse combinations until it got to a point of insanity. For instance, next year, opposite Smurfs is a show being done by Filmation called Gilligan's Planet.
Gilligan's Planet.
And now,
Yeah, that's right,
if you
Dane.
had a choice, if any person had a choice of watching Gilligan's Planet or watching the Smurfs, they would probably watch Smurfs.
Mm-hmm.
The Smurfs are entertaining for what they are.
Yeah, they're for a Saturday morning cartoon show. They are well done. They do try, the people who work on the show at Hanna-Barbera, the story editors there, and the producers, I'm talking about the writing end of it now, do try very hard to get stories that are true to the concept of the show, that
Which is-
fill that nebulous term, which is known only as Smurfy.
Smurfy, I see.
That's a word bandied about much at Hanna-Barbera, and it's sort of like, we're not quite sure what it means, but we certainly know when it isn't there, which is practically all of the time.
I see.
I'm not sure what the appeal is. When we were at a story conference once with Peo and Delaporte, with a lot of other writers there, one writer I remember asked in all seriousness if the Smurfs were patterned after Jungian archetypes.
No, they're patterned after the Seven Dwarfs, I would get from the names that they use.
Actually, the Seven Dwarfs, if we want to get into that, the Seven Dwarfs were very, very different looking physically. Their physical attributes mirrored their personalities, whereas the Smurfs are all, of the same. They all look alike, but their personalities are, supposedly somewhat different. Yeah, they're pretty much one-note personalities, but they're easily identifiable for kids, I guess. Children like them. They're interesting.
Yes, they're enormously popular.
Do you want to take any credit for that, you guys?
Well, it's odd.
Because I only ask that because you seem to be speaking of this stuff with some contempt, and
It's not with contempt. It's with a certain amount of distance, because you come in and they say this is what the thing is, and then you shape your ideas toward that, and you give them you provide what they're asking for.
Yeah, I do not mean to sound contemptuous of them. It is understandable, I think, if I say that, I do not want Smurfs to be what I am remembered for. The Smurf show, the other shows that Marc and I have worked on, such as Black Star,
we did 2/3 of Black Star.
Yeah, which was a Saturday morning show done by Filmation.
Sword and
which was
Sorcery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm doing episodes of a cartoon version of The Incredible Hulk, which will be on this fall. I've done Tarzan, Sentinels, Super Friends, a whole bunch of those. They are means to an end. Which is they support me, they pay very well, they allow me the time to write stuff that I want to write and to support myself in fairly decent style as a freelance writer. And that's what I want.
Do you think like children? Either one of you?
Well,
Or-
after severe blows to the head.
We've been accused of it on a number of occasions. Yes.
Is it necessary to
Well,
think like a
it's
child
funny, I
to
don't-
write? I mean, just Saturday morning.
Yeah, well,
in
Michael and
general.
I don't think Michael and I have really discussed this subject. For myself, I know that when I'm writing the thing, I try and connect with a sort of the child in myself of what would entertain me. Particularly with something like Black Star, I would try within the limitations placed on me to write things that I would enjoy seeing.
Things that we enjoyed, when we
Yes.
were young and liked to
But-
go see shows like that.
Exactly, but the limitations placed on us are very, very major, and also
There are considerable difficulties in
Mm.
animation produced for television at
Yes.
this time.
What sort of difficulties are there? I mean, how many people do you have to answer to, and what sort of things do they want from you?
A lot.
well, you have to answer to. Okay, you're dealing with the story editor or editors sometimes.
Well, you're dealing with the production people. You're dealing
Right.
with the creative people, such as the editors and the producers and all of that. You're also dealing with the people who will be doing the actual animation work, the storyboard people, the animators. You're dealing directly or indirectly with them. We have been told more than once by people in charge of the production department that, hey, Ace, what you're doing here is real good and real exciting, fantastic stuff. We can't do any of it. It's just too complex. We can't animate it. We don't have the
Yes.
time. We don't have the money.
Well, were you telling me once about a rolling ball that you can't animate?
I don't know.
You s-
You feel all right now?
Yeah. No. I think it was Marc. I think wasn't it you, Marc, that once told me that you couldn't have a boulder rolling down on somebody because they couldn't animate something rolling or something like that?
I can find that plausible. I may well have told you that before I had
They
the
can. I mean,
brainwashing
the
done.
problem, yes, I think it's shrunk.
Yes.
The problem is that they can do a lot of
Saffron.
things that they will tell you that they can't do. But,
Yeah.
the
And then-
bottom line is they will try to save money wherever they can.
Yes, and
obviously.
often it hurts them. If some of the studios do too bad a job, they won't sell their series the next year to the networks, and they'll suffer for it. And on one script that we collaborated on, it was incredible. It was so embarrassingly bad. We had an airship, and we had.
This is in Black Star.
This was on Black Star. We had an airship, Jules Verne Leiter, an airship master of the world kind of thing, and our heroes are thrown into the dungeon or whatever the term
That
is.
was the engine room, I believe.
Yeah, and the thing had stone walls
Terrific.
Because
Yeah.
the background that they had to use
from stock.
was a stone wall. So
Yeah.
instead of drawing one that would make sense to be in an airship,
Yeah.
they just used what they had.
Yes.
It's you recycle whatever you have. You cut down on motion and movement and everything. You use you amortize out stock footages of things happening, all that sort of stuff.
Yes.
Basically, you try to keep the cost down just as much as possible.
Except that on Smurfs, Hanna-Barbera deliberately spent more money and put a lot more movement in animation than they normally would have.
This is true.
And I've heard that they took a loss on the first season. Now, of course, that doesn't mean anything because what with all the products
yeah.
and the
They get a
and
piece
the
of that
syndication.
also.
Yeah.
Syndication.
I mean, they're not going to lose money on the Smurfs by any means.
What about the broadcast standards people, the censors and
Yes,
the PTA and all those things? So what do they have to say about this?
A lot.
Yeah, we never hear from anything like PTA or anything. I guess the networks and et cetera would hear from them. We hear from business standards and practices.
Broadcast standards and practices.
Yes, sorry.
That's all right.
And for instance, in every stage from premise to outline to script, for instance, on Smurfs, the story editor gets it, the producer gets it, various people at Hanna-Barbera see it, various people at the network see it, and also it's sent to Belgium for the two guys, Peo and Delport, to read it through and send back their comments by telex.
By telex?
Yeah,
Yes.
and so you're dealing with a
So
lot. You have to please a lot of people.
A lot of input.
It's a very tough audience.
Also, for example, you can get caught in, well, a classic situation that we were caught in, for example, on Black Star was CBS wanted Black Star because at the time Thundar, the Barbarian, which is another Saturday morning show, was real hot stuff. So CBS wanted its own version of it. And they were none of them knew anything about sword and sorcery and all that sort of stuff. And all they knew was that it had to move. Just had to keep it moving. We were literally told at one point that 3 lines of dialogue in a row was too much. Now, in Black Star, we had literally 10 characters to keep track of, and those were just the good guys. We
Those
also
were the
had-
Trobits.
Yeah, the
Trobits.
Trobits
Trobits.
and Black Star and Mara
Yeah.
the Sorceress and
Yeah.
Clone the Shape Change.
That was 10 guys, and those were just the good guys. Then you also had the bad guys, who could be as many as you wanted. Now,
Yes.
with that many
Well, not
people,
as many as you wanted.
Did you have
but-
a standard bad guy for
Yeah,
them?
yeah, a couple of them. But now with that many characters, there come a time every now and then where everybody sort of got to stop and say, well, let's talk about the plot for a minute. But basically, it was like, keep it moving, keep things happening, keep going as fast as you can. That was the network's input. Keep it moving.
Keep it moving.
The studio's input was, we can't keep it moving, we can't afford to keep it moving. Cut away from the action, cut around shots whenever possible, describe things off stage. Yeah, but you keep doing that, and then the network says, hey, this is real boring. So it's Scylla and Charybdis time.
Yeah.
But then this is the classic complaint of all writers, for any form of television, be it prime time or Saturday morning or whatever. Saturday morning is a more specialized form of it. It has its own special problems. But
and yet some
Which
some
you have
people like
solved,
it. Yeah.
obviously.
well, you learn how to write your way around things.
Yes.
It's a craft. You master it.
Now, there was something about the difference between, speaking of this kind of stuff that you write yourself around, the difference between Danger and Jeopardy. Can you explain that?
Well, the writer is in danger and the characters are in jeopardy.
Yes, I don't know if anyone can explain it. Jeopardy is a buzzword that has been used. No one is ever exactly sure what it is, but
But they know
you
what it
can't-
isn't.
But they know what it isn't, which is
What isn't it then?
It's usually not. There's usually not enough of it in a script. What it is you can't have a character in actual danger because of complaints by various pressure groups and everything on shows. They're very concerned about violence on Saturday morning. They're very concerned about children identifying very strongly with characters, and they don't want characters put in real heavy-duty danger because they feel that they're more concerned actually about parents of children complaining than they are about children. I mean, let's not talk altruism here. But what it comes down to are some, at times, very ludicrous rules that are set up. For example, you can't mention, in a script, in a Saturday morning script, you can't mention the word earthquake. You can't have an earthquake.
You can't have an earthquake. An
You're
earthquake
scared.
is an act of God. It's in the Bible.
Doesn't matter. You'll scare children in California. That's
And
their,
Hawaii.
And Hawaii. And Boston.
And China.
A couple of years ago, yes. That is their concept. Now, you can get around this. You can say, instead of saying, don't go over there, there's, the area is prone to earthquakes, you can say the area is geologically unstable. It means the same thing.
But the kid doesn't necessarily know what that
Doesn't
means.
matter. Doesn't matter. I have had scripts come back from BS&P with things down to such minutia as on the shot description, change Black Star shoves Lizard Man to Black Star pushes Lizard Man. Push is a softer word than shove.
But
when
it's
push comes to
but it's
shove.
only a direction for the people who are making it. It'll never be on the show.
It doesn't matter. You see, what you have to understand is everyone involved in this is exactly like you and me. They're all trying to do their jobs. They're all scared of losing their jobs, and they all want to be known for something, no matter how small. Someone will sit over there in his office, and something, a lot of stuff has come across his desk, and maybe he hasn't had time to he hasn't found anything really to say about something, or maybe the guy upstairs has been saying, hey, maybe we got to cut back on the department. I mean, maybe we don't need all these many people here, and he's going to want to say something, Jack, even if it's just, I don't like the color of that, or something like that. He's going to say something because he has to justify his job.
Do the people that you answer to in general know anything about writing and story and plot and characterization and all that sort of thing?
It varies.
It varies.
For instance, this is Marc Zicree talking, by the way. I don't think we ever identified ourselves.
I don't think they...
Generally, the story editors we deal with, hopefully, have experience and have written
Keep it
scripts
correct.
and know what they're doing. Particularly, Michael and I have had fairly good experiences with our story editors at Hanna-Barbera, who are very good guys.
Do not mean to sound, overly, vile and terribly, bored and contemptuous of this or anything. A lot of the people we work with in this business they're very nice people. We enjoy them, see them, socially.
Would you
They're
care to
nice
mention any of
guys.
the nice people?
Chuck Menville and Lynn Jansen at
Yes.
Hanna-Barbera are swell guys. I had good experiences working with David Valère on Super Friends. He's a very nice guy. And, and these people know what they're doing. They work very hard on this stuff. Arthur Nadell at Filmation Studios worked very conscientiously on his shows.
Do they have an aspiration like to do, the animated War and Peace or anything, or are they pretty happy?
A lot of the people that we know, and we'll not mention names in this case if you don't mind, but a lot of the people that we know in the business, I think, are they're not real happy with what they're doing. It's a job. They try and do the best job they can. At times they enjoy it. At times, when the pressure is on, they don't. And a lot of them, I know, have aspirations to do other things. A lot of people I know have told both Marc and myself that they envy the fact that we have remained in a freelance status rather than taking staff jobs, which have been offered to both of us numbers of times.
Is that seductive? Is that something that you kind of think about at least for a minute or two before you say no?
I have no desire to do it. I mean, the money would be very good, but it's a killing job. It's a killing job even doing it freelance. And I don't really think that the security is any more than it is being freelance. I mean, you can be fired any time. There is no real security in anything, I would prefer to make my own hours and to simply continue, to try and be good enough that they're going to come to me before they come to anybody else. You can count on a number of things in this business. One of them is that every year the network will wait until the last minute before they make their buy. Because every year they will, just figure that somehow or other some miracle will occur and they won't have to scrabble for stories. And every year this doesn't happen and they wait till the last minute and the studios cannot fill the demand in-house. And what usually happens is they'll come to us and they'll say, hey, how'd you like to work staff this year? And we say, well, no, I don't think so. And they say, oh, okay, here's what we need. And that's the way it works. And it has been working for me for about 8 years now, going on 8 years. And Marc,
I've been working at doing cartoons for 3 years, as well as the Twilight on book and articles and all the other stuff.
But the point of all this is that, we are not, animation is not our life. It happened to be a thing. The reason I'm in it as opposed to primetime television is because I knew people and I just happened to fall into this particular faucet of the industry. But it's nothing that I want to continue doing for the rest of my life or even a sizable percentage thereof. It buys me time to write novels and short stories and to work on screenplays and etc. in an attempt to, become the best writer I can.
Buys you time. Okay, so you're not doing this all the time.
Oh,
then.
no.
Oh, no, it's about three months out of a year is when the season
It's
is
been a little
open.
bit longer this year, but
but a lot of that
at
was...
the most, no more than 5 months.
Less than half a year, certainly.
Yes, less than half a year.
Yes.
Oh, yes, absolutely. It's seasonal work.
Just
it's
like
real
picking fruit.
Dance in many ways.
Stoop
you kill
labor
yourself.
on television.
Yes, you kill yourself for about 3 or 4 months, and then for the rest of the year, you work on other things. I mean, I've got a lot of other projects going besides.
Okay,
Smurfs.
we'll get to them pretty soon. I've got some questions that I really want to ask.
Go for it, Mel.
Okay, in the article that I have read that Michael Reeves, I keep wanting to call him J. Michael, but we're not supposed to do that anymore, so I won't.
You can if you want. Just don't point at me because
it's
people
radio.
can't see you.
People can't see it. I know.
That's right.
Yeah, this is radio. And I'll
You
point
over there.
You over there. You in the plaid
Yes,
coat.
That's right.
That's right.
Not in a plaid.
Anyway, in this, there's a little joke, a little commentary about where all the artwork is done. It says, "Good news, Ken. The network gave us the green light on the giraffe who was afraid of Columbus Day." And the other guy says, "Yes, I've heard. I've already sent the script to Juan in Santiago. I told him to draw the storyboard. Sent it large so the postal inspection stamps don't." And it goes on, and it goes from one part of the world to another part of the world. And I
trying
just
to find my favorite part.
all
of
right,
the,
find your
one.
favorite, and you can.
Yeah, I
read it.
think he says, where does the stuff go from there? He says, out the Strait of Hormuz to Pork Chop Hill Productions. Check-in would be done on the China Sea by boat people, and the backgrounds would be done by this 28 guys in Papete named Goggin.
Gogan.
Excuse me. I know how to pronounce it, but I didn't pronounce it right.
Yes.
28 people named
First sign of a
Gogan.
brain tumor.
God, I know.
Yes.
That's right. He's shivering even now. Anyway,
Falling over on my chair.
falling over in
But
your
back to
chair.
reality.
Back to
Back to reality.
back to hour 25 anyway. So that's pretty realistic as far as the art goes, isn't it? I mean, it really does
Well,
come
it's
from
an exaggeration, of course.
exaggeration,
But yes, in fact, there may be a strike in the offing from the union because they're sending
of-
more and more
yes.
stuff out of country, and also there's a computerization is taking over a lot of the ink and paint and things like
Really?
that.
Yeah?
Yes. So there's
Okay.
quite a row.
Are there any foreign writers?
Well, gee,
No.
David Villers has a foreign name.
Well, that's not quite what I had in
Real
mind.
glad you brought that up.
Yeah. But,
What
Yes,
about
maybe we should alert the CIA.
what about
No, there
Peo
isn't.
himself? Does he do any Smurf writing?
He submits stories every now and then, premises, which are then developed into stories by writers here.
Oh, I see. So he doesn't actually do full scripts. That's what you guys do, is full
I
scripts.
don't believe he's ever done a full script, no.
Okay. I guess that takes a special kind of talent in itself.
I think he did one once, but they didn't like it.
Isn't that strange? Isn't that strange? I'm reading here. There's a lot of interesting stuff in here. Things that
We should mention there's an article that I
An
wrote
artic-
for the SFWA, the Science Fiction Writers of America Bulletin.
That's right.
It was an article that I wrote on writing for Saturday morning cartoons. It's called the Saturday Morning Superhero Writers Grant Program, or We're Not Doing Ibsen Here.
We're not doing Ibsen here. And
Copyright 1982 by Michael Reeves.
That's right. This is volume 16, number 3, for those of you keeping count.
yes.
I love this. This is wonderful. Kid Comet, Moleculad, and Nova. They are the teen force who appear like the wind from the black hole. That's capital B, capital H, at the first sign of trouble. Then,
No Freudian slip-ups here.
no, I'm telling you, their job done, they vanish as mysteriously as they came, claiming no reward for their efforts, other than the satisfaction that Uglor,
Yes.
Go for it.
the cyborg super ape, has suffered another small but bitter defeat. And then Michael has
True.
commented here, I'm not making this up.
Yes.
That's from the. That was from the
Teen Force
presentation. Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
And
Zimmerman
a show
says,
called Teen
we're
Force.
We're not doing Ibsen here. Oh, this is terrific. When Jan and Jace, Space Ghost sidekicks, are described in the Writer's Bible as being fraternal twins born a year apart. Awfully tough on old mom, I would think.
Yes.
Happened near a black hole.
Uh-huh. And the Astromites, a sort of hydrocephalic Laurel and Hardy adjunct of the Teen Force, are buttonholed as, and I quote now, two tiny aliens who hail from a distant planet somewhere in the galaxy of Micro Centauri, which evaporated 2,000 years ago.
Yes, they left it out in the sun too long.
One can easily accept Fred Silverman's comment to a writer during a series pitch that we are not doing Ibsen here. Perhaps not even Neil Simon. Perhaps not. Perhaps not. Okay, so there's all this stuff going on television, and some of it's really not very good. Some of it is better than some of the other of it.
Some of it is okay. I mean, I've
couldn't all
done
be
shows
awful.
that I've enjoyed. I think.
Have you done any shows you're proud of?
I've done scripts I'm proud of. I don't know if I could say that I'm that proud of the show. Let's put it this way. I've never seen them produce a show that I thought was really, hot. I have done a lot of scripts that within the limitations of what I had to work for, I was proud of. I wrote a Tarzan script that was 22 minutes of non-violence that was set in a city filled with kung fu masters. No easy task.
How did you do that?
I did it.
I mean, what do these kung fu guys do? They go around breaking bricks and sticks and running into
No,
walls?
the concept that I tried to impart was that essentially, it was called Tarzan and the Sifu, which Sifu means teacher, and it was essentially a character. We brought in a character who learns that violence is not the answer. That's not the way to solve things. And some of the teachings of martial arts, as I've understood them, is if you have to use violence in a sense, you are already defeated. And this was, the moral we attempted to do on the show. So there wasn't much, because of broadcast standards and practices, and because of animation difficulties. There wasn't any fighting or anything like that. I did indicate in places where people would do katas or forms, which are stylized movements simulating fighting and designed to enhance skill and balance, that sort of thing. I thought it came out as a very good script. Some of the Black Stars that Marc and I worked on and that I wrote myself, I liked for what they were. I thought they were good. I'm interested in seeing what the shows that I'm doing for Marvel, for the Hulk, are going to be like, because there are a couple of those that I really like.
Did you spend time researching that one about the kung fu? Or do
To a
you
degree.
know how to do that anyway? And
What are you trying to pick up Channel 13 here?
This is body English that I'm doing. I'm
I
holding up
see,
my arms.
yeah. I've
His
studied.
hands are registered as deadly weapons.
I've
yeah.
studied martial arts for a number of years, and I am fascinated by the subject. So I've I've read a lot about it and stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Is it worth your time to do research if it's necessary, or do they just cut out all the real stuff?
Well, it's always worth your time to do research. As much as you can in the time allotted to you and everything, it's worth it for you. Even if they take out every bloody thing that you put in the script, you should still do it because it keeps your muscles from getting flabby. The worst thing that can happen to you, and the thing you always have to guard against, is just saying, the hell with it. They're just going to take it out anyway, so why not just, sit down and dash it out? It's usually a rule of thumb I've found that these scripts that I sit down and type and just go, okay, fine, action, 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 comma, action, 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 are the ones that go through all white paper, whereas the ones where I try to put in a lot of stuff that I like are usually ones that well, it's real slow, do you think you can, But you can't let that get to you. You have to keep on. You have to please yourself in doing this to a degree, or it's just not worth it.
Yes.
Then you become a hack.
And also, it's very important to do other writing that is less of a compromise. I think that's very important. And another one other thing is to mention that when we write our scripts, and even when we see them on the air, there is a certain slight qualitative difference between some of the things that we write and some of the things that other writers, particularly staff writers, some of them.
Well, we would like to think so anyway.
Well, I've talked to people who are staff writers who say to me, I do not consider myself a writer. I've
I
never
like
been
that.
a writer, never
Yeah.
wanted to be a writer, and I just sort of got this job, and I'm doing it.
It gives them a unique perspective.
And then you see you see what they come up with, and it's I mean, whoa.
It's frightening. And
Very
then do
strange.
you guys ever go back and then
Well,
correct somebody else's problems?
I've had
No.
to rewrite. I've had to rewrite other people on occasion. I was going to say, but I won't. No, I was going to say I rewrote somebody whom you know, but I won't.
You won't. Off the air.
Off the air. But I think in one respect that is why we continue to get work on this, because the stuff that we do, although by no means, it's not something that we really kill ourselves on, is still, we're usually told that, hey, this is better, this is more interesting, this is more innovative, you do it good and you do it fast. But the bottom line is to do it fast as opposed to doing it good. I mean, I heard someone very high up in a studio speak about a writer who is extremely prolific and extremely wealthy from writing Saturday morning cartoons. And his stories are considered by most people to be not great. And they once asked someone who's vice president of production at one of the places, well, why did we keep getting stuff? And they said, because he comes up with stories that the network will consistently buy. He does them fast, and they're not bad.
They're not bad.
Right.
They're not terrible.
Right.
They're
See,
okay.
that's the criterion.
And
The
he'll be
network
doing
will
it
buy them, and they
forever.
go in on time.
Yeah. And
How'd you like to have that on your tombstone?
Yeah. He was always on. He always made a deadline.
He always made a deadline.
Yeah.
Now, leave us not,
There's nothing wrong with making a
nothing wrong with
deadline.
making a deadline.
No.
You've got to make deadlines, otherwise you don't get work. But
That's right.
you try and do the work as best you can within the limitations that are imposed upon you. But if all that we were doing was writing Saturday morning cartoons, I don't know about Marc, but I'd probably go take a bath with my toaster.
So you guys are not
Just I take a
hacks.
bath with your toaster too, but then Mel's never seen your toaster.
Quite a toaster.
That's
So,
quite a toaster.
yes.
So you guys don't consider yourself hacks because you do other things, and because you try to get things into your stories that you personally will enjoy.
Well, we'd like to think that way. Maybe we're deluding ourselves, but no, I don't particularly consider myself a hack. I consider myself a professional writer. I'm making a living at it, and
Which is more than a lot of professional writers can say, certainly.
probably. If I were a part-time writer, I could have the luxury of picking and choosing and saying, well, no, I'm going to write this, and I'll just turn out one novel every 5 years, and it'll be dynamite and all that. But you have to make a living, and once you get past 30, starving in a garret doesn't seem nearly as attractive and romantic. I mean, I served my time in garrets, Ace. I, did the Bohemian Writer number for a long time. And it gets old.
Yeah, it does.
You sort of owe it to yourself to be a mensch after a while.
That's true enough. A mensch, for those of you out there who don't know what it means, good luck.
Is it okay if I use the word? I'm not Jewish.
I don't know. You have to have an
Minority
ID
here.
card. You have to get permission from the head rabbi in Jerusalem before you can do that.
Oh, well, if he's listening.
Well, probably so. KPFK goes everywhere.
Hey, the 40,000 foot antenna out there,
That's right.
we saw when we came in.
And we
KPFK
watered it down.
Entertainment Center.
We watered it down this evening.
Yeah,
too.
we want to tell you, for those of you who have never been here, it's really pretty awesome. The KPFK skyscraper,
Yes.
77 stories.
With the monkey at the
high.
top.
Yes, it's amazing. It has its own tennis courts and swimming pool and highlight courts and everything. It's really pretty
Everything you would want in a bar that
Yeah.
rotates at the top.
Yeah, it's
A lot of
amazing.
things rotate around here, I'll tell you. So you have new ideas and you have put things in there that you want. What? I should ask a real short question because we have about 3 minutes until ID time. Why don't we do that now and get it out of the way and not have to worry about it? He's going to write it down as we say it. This is Elaine Zicree about to do the station ID, and hold on to your hats, fellas.
This is KPFK, Los Angeles.
Hey, I'll applaud for that.
Wow. That's
A terrific
entertainment.
job.
Hey, I
Boy,
wanna
can you
tell
get
ya.
this on any other station?
No other station I can think of.
And we got to watch.
Hey,
Wow.
would you like to say something that wasn't in the script? I mean, just hello or something about the Smurfs?
Say hi,
or-
Mom.
Yes, it was a good
No?
fight.
No? Okay. Yeah. I could have been a contender in the ring.
Yes.
Hey,
Yeah.
Hey, instead of the bum, which I am.
But to answer your question on hack smell, relating to that, it's interesting. I've met a lot of hack writers, and most of them don't think that they're hack writers.
Aha.
And I've met a few who admitted that they were hacks, but not many.
Maybe.
I met a man who once wrote advertising copy and didn't think he was a hack writer. Ultimately, a person defines it for himself, and Michael and I have come to grips with that in ourselves. And for each of us, it's simply that we write
Our
other
own.
things.
Our own private demons,
That-
as it were.
Yes, but we write other things that are important to us and that we do not compromise in to such a degree.
Yeah.
I guess the question comes down to whether you want to be hack, and I use that in quotes, a hack, or if you want to prostitute yourself in some other way, like, working in a bookstore all day or writing the
Yes.
advertising or...
In a way, you can look at what we're doing, I suppose, as in one aspect, I suppose, as selling shoes for a very high price.
To millions of children.
To billions of children, yes.
Millions and millions of
It
children,
buys the time. That's what it does.
which is the idea.
Yes.
And
And to a degree, Michael and I are sort of, I don't think mavericks is the right term, but we really don't hold 9-to-5 jobs. I mean, we are freelancers, and we go out there and we generate the work on a freelance basis, and we're fairly rare in that. There are many more staff writers than freelancers at this point in television.
You don't have to drive to work in the morning, which is what I like.
Yeah, the bottom line is simply, whatever you want to call it, I don't care. The definitions used to bother me, but they don't particularly anymore. I do what I do. I'm very good at it, and I'm a good writer. And I've been told I've had stuff, that's been nominated for awards, and I've been told that, the stuff that I've written outside of TV is quite good, and it's that stuff that keeps me going. And that's fine. Eventually, I'll make enough money doing that where I won't have to write TV no more.
Ah, you
Lousy,
don't
have to do TV no more.
Yes.
Lord.
You don't want to do TV. Not really.
Not particularly.
Even though there's word for word, hour for hour that you spend at the typer, there must be more money in TV than there is in books.
Oh, damn straight. I've made as much as, quickly estimating, I think the highest I ever made was probably about $1,500 an hour for about
I'm not sure I want to hear any of this.
3 hours.
This is all quite depressing. 3 hours, huh?
Yeah, for 3 hours, but I mean, that's 3 hours out of the year. but you see, it fluctuates wildly. And then I've also made some pretty peon wages where it comes down to like maybe 2 or 3 cents an hour.
Yeah.
But yeah, it can get kind of heady. It can, at times. But
You'd work for less if they would do your story the way you wanted.
I have on
Well,
occasion.
I mean, we both write in markets that pay a lot less than that.
Yeah. And I would a lot rather do that, than TV. But you also have to make a living. This is redundant. We've said this before.
Sure. Okay. All right. Now, I was thinking about phones, but before we get to the phones, by the way, you should be thinking of your questions because we're going to open the telephone pretty soon now, and you can talk to these two august personalities, Michael Reeves and Marc Zicree,
What's his
Marc
name?
Scott Zicree over here in the other corner. But before it's 985-5735. So
The guy wearing
get
the
your
Hawaiian
thinking
shirt.
caps on. Yeah, the guy in the Hawaiian shirt. But first,
And nothing else.
I want to talk a bit about the thing that we've all been waiting for, and that is a book by, it says here, J. Michael Reeves, called Dark World. Now, pay attention, this is your book.
Hey!
Hitting the guest with his own book.
Was
Hey.
actually written by his pet dog.
His pet. He doesn't have a dog. Hey, okay, stop that. Called Dark World Detective. Would you care to tell us something about what it's about and where it came from and why you wrote it and all those things?
Well, the book.
You have half an hour.
I have half an hour. Thank you very much. The book was originally conceived as a series of stories for an anthology that Byron Preiss was doing back in 1977 called Weird Heroes, which was sort of a an update for the 1970s of the old pulp magazines. So, and he was coming up with, sort of fun stories in a pulpish vein. So I said, okay, how about taking the Private Eye Chandler-esque motif and fusing it with a sword and sorcery motif and just doing something with that. And he said, fine, run with it. So I did 2 stories for him, which are the first 2 stories in this book. It was supposed to go on as a series for a while, like say 7 or 8 stories, and then wrap. And then the series as a whole wrapped rather precipitously, and we were left with these sort of hanging there. Not being one to leave a series hanging and disappoint the 5 or 6 fans out there in America who had been following it.
That many, huh?
If we're, yes, on a good day.
On a good day, yeah.
And also, not being one to throw away potential money, if there's at all possibility of that, I took the 2 stories, wrote an outline, as some have it, for a couple of more, and shipped it off to Bantam, who had, just brought out Dragon World, which Byron Preiss and I wrote. And they bought it. So I restructured the first 2 stories a bit to enable me to tell the entire story in 4 interconnected novelettes.
They are somewhat rewritten then.
Somewhat. Yes. And both at the request of Bantam in order to give it a greater cohesion as a novel rather than a collection of novelettes, and also to make things fit. And wrote them. And I thought it might be fun to write a sword and sorcery type novel. It's not something that I did with the intention of doing great literature, but it was something that I did because I thought it would be fun. And I think it is.
Was it fun?
Yeah, it's fun. It was
fun to do.
It was fun to do. It was done on a rather tight deadline, so at times it was a little bleary-eyed, but it was fun to do. I did some things I swore I'd never do, which is did a lot of in-jokes and so forth and so on. I figured I might as well have fun while I was writing this.
At one point in there, somebody shoots a Smurf for food, as I recall.
Well, I'm glad you said that, Mel. I can expect a lawsuit on my doorstep.
Well, it's in the book, goddammit,
Yeah, well, the people over at H&B are going to really, yes, a little lawyer Smurf will come to the door and serve me with a subpoena.
Yes.
At any rate, there's a lot of stuff like that in there.
A city named Zicree?
Yes, I named a city after Zicree.
Didn't know that.
Oh, you didn't
Good
know
Lord.
that? Here, wait a minute.
I haven't read this book.
Talk amongst yourselves for a moment. Here you go.
They're finding it even now.
There you go.
Even now as we look.
Oh, that's
They
funny.
spell it funny. It's spelled X-I-Z.
Yes.
Okay, hey, I don't want to be sued,
Oh, that's very funny. I'll have to buy the book.
And there's a lot of other now there's a lot of other things in there that are in jokes in a much wider sense, because they come from like Raymond Chandler novels and Dashiell Hammett novels and old movies.
Sure.
There's even one of the main props is a thing called the Black Mask.
Yes.
And for those of you who are aware of pulp history, Black Mask was one of the biggest pulp magazines in what, the 30s, maybe
Absolutely.
the 40s.
Yeah.
They published a lot of Raymond Chandler, a lot of Dashiell Hammett.
Well, one of the things that Byron liked about the concept was I came up with the concepts like that and the story titles, which were sort of outrageous and totally indefensible puns. The 4 titles, there are 4 novelettes in the book, and the titles of them are The Big Spell, The Maltese Vulcan, Murder on the Galactic Express, and The Man with the Golden Ray Gun.
All references. The Man with the Golden Ray Gun is a little far afield because that's a James Bond title.
Well, you know what gave me the idea for that was I heard a rumor, and I don't know if it's true or not, but it's a wonderful, it should be true. I heard a rumor that Raymond Chandler and Ian Fleming discussed doing a collaboration in which Philip Marlowe would meet James Bond.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I said that, and it never came to pass. But I said that's wonderful. What a neat concept, of a downtrodden gumshoe coming face to face with a flashy, James Bondian private eye, and so that's where I got the idea.
I hope that it's true. I have no
hope
idea.
It is true. I
but
have no idea if it
no
is.
idea if it's
But the reason I heard that they decided not to do it was because Chandler said no, Bond would get all the women.
Which is true.
Which is true, but at any rate, that was what sparked the idea. and I had a good time writing it. I hope every man, woman, and child in America goes out and buys a copy of it.
Because it's full of wonderful things. Why don't we take a phone call and see what the public has to say?
Let's take that one over there.
This one over here.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, the one. That
oh,
one.
that one.
The blue
okay,
one.
the blue one. Okay. KPFK, you're on the air.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'd like to ask either of the guests how they might guess the position of freelance writers might change when the cost of production comes down for animation through computer technology.
Well, it's entirely... Hello, the door is opening.
No, just answer the question. Just ignore the door.
Oh, God. Well, it's entirely possible that might happen. So far, I haven't seen too much indication that it's going to affect the writing of it too much, but if it comes down to the point to where writing animation is untenable for me to do for whatever reason, say, the market dries up or anything, I'll write something else.
Yes, it should be. We should mention that for both of us, our animation helps pay the bills, but it's not the main source by any means.
This is true.
Bantam is paying me a nice sum for the Twilight Zone Companion,
which we will be talking more about come October.
Yes, when the book is coming out.
That's true. I just sold a novel to Timescape for nice money.
And I have a monthly thing in Twilight Zone magazine, which helps to pay the rent. So. Freelancing is from a lot of sources.
Yes, freelancing is from a lot of sources. The whole concept of freelancing, as I see it, is not to be dependent upon any one market, because then if that does dry up, then you're in bad shape. So I hope that answers the question.
Well, I was thinking particularly in terms of networking. You had, the costs of production were a major obstacle you had in your creative latitude.
Oh, I see.
Well, so far they haven't been cutting the money on the writing because, for one thing, the money they pay the writers is really a very small percentage of the total cost.
Mm-hmm.
So if the total cost for the rest of production goes down, you see possibly writers being in a better position to utilize their creative abilities and perhaps enhance.
Well, you can't get rid of the writers, see, because they have
much as they would like to.
But perhaps is it possible they might be in a better position?
I really couldn't say. It's hard to tell. There's so many variables, so many ways that it could jump, that it's really hard to say. I can only tell you what my reaction would be in such a case, which is the reason that I do this is because it's a very good hourly wage. I'm not intrinsically attached to animation per se. It's good money for the amount of work that I do. If it gets to the point to where that hourly wage starts coming down in, more work for the same amount of money, then eventually it behooves me to look for some other way to make a good living.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks very much for calling.
Right.
KPFK, you're on the air.
Yes, thank you very much for a very interesting discussion. I was just curious
you.
to know whether either of your guests had children.
Children?
Have any children?
Not that I know of.
Many children.
Yeah, they haven't told me. No, as a matter of fact, none of us do.
Marc has a dog.
Well, yes, which is very childish.
Which you can have if you'd like.
Okay, I was just curious because here, the discussion was most interesting, and I can't certainly judge either of you on the fact that I've never read or seen any of your shows. But I was curious to know.
It's a good question. It's very one
write
thing
for children mostly, don't you?
Yes.
One thing. Well, not mostly.
Not mostly, but I'm for TV.
But we write for story editors.
Our television work is all for children's television. But it's very interesting. One thing that is very curious in this industry is how very, very rarely you hear anyone in the industry mention children at all.
Yeah, I'm sure.
They're always dealing with what the network wants, things like that, deadlines.
What happens is that you tend to, and it's possibly unfortunate, but you tend to forget, particularly when you're under the gun and you've got to get this thing done by Friday and it has to be in, and you're sitting there in a little room, staring at a typewriter or a computer screen, and you're working real hard, and you're just trying to get the thing done and get turned in on time. You tend to forget that, hey, this is something that is going to be seen by 60 million children, in a couple of months, and people whom you've never seen and never spoken to, and possibly have some sort of an influence. This is something that should be borne in mind constantly.
Definitely.
But a lot of times it's something you just can't think about.
And it's very strange
because
when
you freeze up.
Well, it's very strange when you when you go places and you encounter children who've seen things that you've written and they remember them specifically by plot, and it really
it's even stranger when you
comes
encounter
home
adults.
to you. Yes, Michael and I have both gotten fan letters from some of the cartoon shows we've written, and which is
From
nice.
people who have seen the cartoon shows.
Yes, that's true. Important point.
My apologies. I'm not usually up at that time on Saturday mornings.
Oh, that's quite all right.
It's understandable.
Black Star is on at
Neither are we
11:30.
usually.
Anything else?
No, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. KPFK, you're on the air.
Hello.
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 This is your local. No, I'll tell you, I've seen Black Star.
Oh,
You know
Muzzle
know
time.
that there are grown-ups out there who do watch cartoons once in a while.
yes, we know that.
Good.
Have you got a question?
Oh, I want to ask you, has any of you guys, was going to go out and see that Secret of Nim. Is it any good? I've heard it is, and I heard it isn't.
Well, I don't think Michael hasn't seen it, and I haven't either.
I hear it's quite good.
The things,
animation
yeah,
is very good.
the clips I've seen from it look very nice, and certainly the fact that the people left Disney to try and do something that was more in the spirit of the old Disney films is admirable.
Yeah, I know some people who work for Disney who've seen it, and they say, yeah, it's quite good. It's obviously made with a certain amount of care and love that is sadly lacking in most animated productions today.
Yes.
So
Just asked because I was going to go out and see it.
It's probably well worth the time and money. It's from what I've heard, it's definitely more worth seeing than something like Tron, which is.
I talked to somebody who's seen Tron, and he says it's a lot more interesting than you think it is.
Oh,
so there.
Good.
So there, that it's not just a lot of the special effects are really quite special. He says,
Yes.
but there is also a plot.
Well,
so there.
Good.
And I want to tell you, I didn't get. I finally went out and got to see the Star Trek movie, the new one.
Uh-huh.
It was very interesting. I found it very interesting. And I like the way I've noticed how they've been developing Mr. Spock. He's becoming a lot more cooler.
Cooler even.
Since he died, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, no, you know what I mean. I mean, he's mellowed.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's true.
Yes. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the next movie where they bring him back.
Yeah, with his blessed death, I'm sure he'll mellow even more.
Who knows? Thanks very much for calling.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Terry, you have something important to say to the public at large. Please go ahead and do it.
Hit it.
Hit it, Terry.
Okay, we did get a call, which I think our audience would be interested in. The Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror. The person who takes care of that, Tim Waldmuth, has a screening which he is inviting our listeners to come see. Tomorrow, Saturday, The Secret of Nim will be screened, and director Don Bluth will be there to talk about the movie. It's a freebie. It's happening tomorrow at 10 in the morning, at 12:30, and at 3 in the afternoon. And it's happening at USC's Norris Theater. And so if you would like to go see Secret of Nim and speak with director Don Bluth about it, that's tomorrow, Saturday, at USC's Norris Theater. And on Sunday, in the morning at 10:30, they'll be showing The Sword and the Sorcerer, and the director of that, Albert Puin, will be there. I am mispronouncing his name terribly, but he will also bring the two stars of The Sword and the Sorcerer, George Maharis and Richard Lynch, and that's also a free screening Sunday morning at 10:30 at the Four Star Theater at Highland in Wilshire. So if you want to go to either of these screenings, just tell them that you're there from Hour 25 and tell them thank you. And by the way, the Friends of KPFK are going to be having the second annual book, record, and miscellany sale this Saturday and Sunday. And if you want to know what that has to do with Hour 25, among the books and miscellany available for sale is a large collection of Starlog magazines. And so if you want to come over and look through all the sorts of things that are for sale, it's happening tomorrow and Sunday, 11 a.m. to 6, here at KPFK up in Studio Z, 3729 Cahuenga Boulevard West in North Hollywood. And thank you, Mel, for letting me get a word in edgewise.
Well, that's really the only way people get in words here in the Space Zone. Listen, would you write all that stuff down for me, for some of it, so that I can read it on the air later on in about 15 minutes? We'll try it again. Well, Michael Reeves has been twisting my arm, and so I'm going to do a thing here, and if I do this, he won't pistol whip me after the show.
Unless you ask him.
Maybe.
I want to disavow all knowledge of this.
Maybe Maybe Elaine will sit in the front seat of the car as we all drive home.
This could give a lot of people interesting ideas.
Hey, listen.
The parking lot's going to be full when we get out of here.
Hey, listen. Hodel isn't here. We can do whatever we want. Huh?
Oh, really?
Okay. He's in San Diego. What does he know? Okay.
Is that why you've got the leather in here?
That's it. Well, that's for Hodel. He's usually into leather. Yeah. I'm into other things.
So this is a review that you found of
that
my
I found.
book?
This is a review that I found in the Fantasy Newsletter of August 1982.
In Michael's hand.
And in Michael's handwriting. I don't know. It's his typing. Of somebody who liked Dark World Detective a good deal. He says. Where does it say this? It's Dread, Shadow Knight, and Real Terror remind me very much of Philip Farmer's far more serious Night of Light. From either perspective, it's effective and powerful. They like it a lot. Not a bad thing. Not a bad thing. Now, who is this person that wrote the review?
I don't know.
Roger C. Schlobin.
That's what it says.
Yes,
of beautiful Chesterton, Indiana.
Hey, obviously a regular contributor to the New York Times Book Review.
And a man who knows of where he speaks.
Damn straight. I want to know that I've never seen any of these people before in my life.
In your life.
And
if you'd like to call and ask any of these people who I've never seen before in my life, they just came in off the streets. We have Marc Zicree and...
Hey!
That's Michael.
And Michael Reeves.
I'm more urbane.
You're supposed to fix me dinner.
We stop that. Saturday morning cartoons and how to write for them and what it's...
on the gamma rays too long.
Yes.
And writing for the masses, I guess, is the subject for the evening. If
yes,
you want to call,
we're writing a mass next
week. Will you
week.
shut up so I can get the phone number?
Yes.
985-5735-985-KPFK for those of you who are into the alphabet, and you can ask either one or both of them a question, and just as this person right here. KPFK, you're on. Oh, there we go. KPFK, you're on the air.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
A lot of people I know would swear that Saturday morning cartoons don't use writers.
So would we on occasion.
Yeah, I'd like to know how you got steered in that direction in the first place.
Well, basically, as I said before, I just sort of kind of... Hello.
Talk to the microphone.
Yes. Oh, the big
That's an ashtray over there.
I'm fine.
Technology.
Looks like a bald tribble.
Well,
Anyway,
just speak,
okay.
speak the question.
Speak the question. Okay.
Or the answer, better yet.
That's better, Mel.
Uh-huh.
I just sort of fell into it. As is mostly the case in this town, it's who you know, or whom. And I knew somebody who said to me, actually the first couple of scripts that I wrote were for Saturday morning, but they were not cartoons, they were live action. I wrote a show called ISIS and one called Shazam, which is about Captain Marvel. And that got me into the Writers Guild and all that wonderful stuff and all the attendant benefits there too. But basically just someone I knew said, hey, they're really hot for scripts over at Filmation because they need writers real bad on this show, so why don't you trot on over there? So I went over there, and they described the show to me, and it was sort of a low-budget extravaganza about this lady who, can turn into ISIS at the drop of a wind machine. And so I said, okay, fine, why don't we do a show about Bigfoot? And they said, wow, great, I love it, love you, talk to my agent. And I suddenly found myself around $4,000 richer. And I said, hey, this ain't bad. How long has this been going on? To quote Heinlein. And figured, okay, fine. So promptly quit my job enthusiastically and bought myself a used Selectric.
What was your job at that time?
I was working in the complaint department at Sears Roebuck.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
The dregs.
Hey, I want to tell you, the only nice thing about it was that I was in charge. I was scheduling the hours for that for my department there, which is the Ticketron machine and other things. And so I was able to schedule my hours. And so as I got more and more work, I would schedule less and less hours until eventually I sort of just didn't come back. And there's probably still a name, for me up there on the bulletin board and 7 blank spaces after. Well, someday he'll come back. So
just tap your heels together 3 times.
3 times.
Uh-huh.
So that's basically how it happened. I started selling more scripts to them, and then I just sort of got in there. And because I was never really concerned about making it in television per se, I never really pursued to any great degree writing for prime time shows, which is more lucrative. I simply used the money, again, to buy me time to write books, of which I've sold, 5? And novel and short stories and so forth. So that's how I got into it. And then Marc got into it through me. I said, how'd you like to write for cartoons?
The first one's free. Huh?
Hey, that's right.
So is it necessarily, say, easier to write for cartoons than prime time?
No.
Less competition?
Actually, there's more competition because on Saturday morning you have only, one morning, whereas in prime time you have 7 evenings.
But the mechanism at work is very much the same, which is essentially that when a story is, when a series is open, the story editor will usually call the people he's worked with before and likes on a personal level.
That's right.
And so if you don't know people in prime time, it's very difficult breaking in. Whereas if you know the people in cartoons, well, then it's a lot easier to at least get in, to get their ear. You still have to pitch story ideas. You still have to come up with something that they like, and then write a script that they can use. If they can't use the script, they won't use you again.
That's basically what it comes down to. They're not in the business of being nice guys or anything like that. They have the shows to do.
One of the story editors that we work with was talking about someone that he had. We were sitting in his office, and he got a call from some higher up to recommend a certain writer, and the fellow said, don't use him. He did something for me, and
had to rewrite him all.
I had to rewrite him all the way through. And so Michael and I, after this conversation, looked at this fellow, the story editor, and he said, "Look, I'm not in the business to teach someone how to write."
Yeah.
And that's where
they got enough pressures.
Yeah.
So no, it's no. I wouldn't say it's any easier.
It's not easier, but once you're in, it's easier than trying to break into another room of the business.
Okay.
One final thing. Have either of you guys written for Trollkins?
No, I think Jeff Scott wrote all of those.
Yeah, I don't know. No, we didn't.
No.
It was very funny because at one point the Trobbits on Black Star were called Trollkins.
And do you remember they were also calling his Star Sword? They were calling it the Sun Sword,
which was the same thing that Thundar wields.
And we sort of had to say, you want to talk to the guys down the street? I think you may have some problems here.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks very much for calling.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. KPFK, you're on the air.
It's the Smurfs.
It must be the Smurfs themselves. Yes. Well, thank you very much for calling.
Yeah, they're up past their bedtime.
I guess so.
Stuff,
no, we only have the best people calling here on this show. This is the thing that I'm going to be reading later.
Okay.
Okay. When you write this wonderful stuff, a lot of it you have to write very fast.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're talking blisters on the finger.
Yeah. How do you keep yourself fresh? Do you keep yourself fresh, or do you just pull a cliche out of your
shower? Yes. I have been known to pull a few cliches in my time. Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, what can you do? You do the best you can. Sometimes, sometimes you're on, sometimes you're not. This stuff don't wait for the muse.
You're going to see Adam and Eve Smurf, do you think? Not a bad idea.
No, I mean, there are times when, you could say the old thing about, well, nothing's original and all that sort of stuff. But
part of it is you keep yourself fresh by the fact that you only do a certain number each season for 3 months or 4 months, and then for the rest of the year you're not writing cartoons, and so then when you come to it, you've had a little bit of a respite.
Mm-hmm.
That helps.
Yeah, but it's getting to help less and less as the years go on.
Yeah, it's hard to think up new ideas, new
it's
gimmicks.
It's not even that. Look, I can write this stuff in my sleep.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can do
some of it reads like that.
I know. I can do at least a competent job of it, and it's okay. I mean, I don't mind, and I don't feel that I'm selling out art or any of my other friends. But but the point is, I don't particularly want to do it for the rest of my life. It's a means to an end. But as long as I have to do it to make money, then I will do the best job I can. And, it's kind of disheartening when they send it back and say, take out all this. And it's, no, that was my favorite part. Hey, too bad. It don't work. Take it out. Okay.
Yeah, because they're paying the bill after all.
They're paying the bill.
You try not to put too much of your heart into it. You always put craft into it, and a certain amount of yourself goes into almost anything you write.
There are writers who refuse to work in the medium because they don't want their works, changed in any form or any way, and this is certainly a viable, viewpoint to take.
Mm-hmm.
I feel the same way about things that I write about, books and short stories and so forth. Television I look at, although there are times when I will enjoy doing it, and there are times when I'll write a script that I like and that comes out good, and I always try and do a very good job. It is still, at times, doing technical writing. You just try and do the best that you can within the limitations that they give you. And it doesn't particularly bother me when Chuck says, okay, that's a good script you turned in. I'm going to change this and this and this. Okay, fine. Sometimes he'll change something, a turn of phrase or a scene that I liked, that I thought was good. And sometimes I'll fight for it. Sometimes I say, no, look, because a lot of times when this happens, they're working so hard on the show that it's so close to them, here's a real nice scene that works from this other scene over here, okay? But the show's like 40 seconds long. Something's got to go. And he's going to cut that. And you say, hey, no, wait a minute, man. That's the whole point of the story. Oh, Jesus, you're right. Okay, well, let's see if we can trim it someplace else. A lot of times they just don't see it. It's not that they're malicious or anything like that. They're just working under the gun. And so you'll talk about that sometimes to do it. And sometimes you feel okay when it comes out. Sometimes you don't.
It's sort of the breaks, huh?
It's the breaks in that particular thing, but as I say, I have my other work to, comfort me.
Stuff like Dark World Detective.
Well, Dark World Detective was something done for fun. The book I'm working on now is a fantasy for Timescape called The Shattered World, and I'm very proud of it. I think it'll be an excellent novel. Arkham House, it wants to do a collection of my short stories as a horror collection.
Wow.
I'm real pleased with that. So... not to say that everything that I do is just sort of.
And Werewin got picked up for best fantasy of the year.
It's been anthologized a couple of times.
Yeah.
A story that I had in FNSF.
And it was
so.
Wow.
This gives me great pleasure, but stories like that I can't live on.
No.
Yes.
But I get a heck of a lot more satisfaction from writing a story like that and having it reprinted and picking up maybe something like that than I do from writing TV. It's a trade-off.
I see. Well, let's take another phone call here
Hey.
from out here in the world. There we go. KPFK, you're on the air.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Also, I'd like to say that I do like the Smurfs. Those little guys.
They like you too.
Good. Oh, they don't have good taste, do they?
Up to you. Whatever. You have a question?
Yes. I was wondering what about what do you think about any violence in animation? I know about what you were saying earlier about push and shove. Also, and things really about good guys can't really hit the bad guys. No physical contact.
That can be real.
That can drive you into an asylum.
Yes, that can get real crazy at times.
It's very tricky because they want almost constant nonviolent violence. They want a lot of physical action, a lot of running and chasing and threats, but it can't be too dangerous, and you're always walking a tightrope, and it's very difficult to determine how far you can go without going over the line. And it's very tricky, particularly in something like Black Star, where you had a lot of... my God, he had a star sword, but he couldn't use it as a sword.
What was that about the Lone Ranger?
Oh, they were...
Oh, yes.
Yeah, at one point they didn't want to... Hello. Yes, I'm here. At one point they didn't want to have the Lone Ranger wear a gun. Because guns shoot bullets.
This was the animated Lone Ranger.
Yeah, the animated Lone Ranger, and broadcast standards and practices said, well, okay, but he can't wear a gun. And everyone said, oh, come on!
Yes, how can he carry silver bullets
exactly.
if he doesn't wear a gun?
And they said, well, all right, he can wear a gun, but he can't shoot it. And they said, are you kidding? So now he can shoot the gun, but he can't shoot it at people or anything. Obviously, he can do things like, shoot a rope in half or something like that. That's the way you get around it. This is why there are so many science fiction and fantasy shows on Saturday morning, because while it's okay to sort of, blow a robot to hell and gone with a blast ray or something like that, you can't go out and, scrag a guy on the street with an Uzi. It's the same principle, but you have to draw the line somewhere. And of course, it's ludicrous, but nobody's complained yet. That's what it comes down to. When they complain, we'll change it.
I see. Everybody's afraid of the PTA.
Well, they're real concerned about no violence in all the news shows and everything, but you can turn on the TV every Saturday morning and see Bugs Bunny and the Roadrunner get smashed, pulped, beaten.
Yeah, but they do cut that.
Death.
Yeah.
That's true enough.
Because, hey, the rabbit gets the ratings.
Ha! True enough. You have another question, or is that it?
Have you ever seen any Japanese animation? Because in a lot of Japanese shows, such as Mobile Suit Gundam or Cyborg 009, you usually see the enemy or some of the good guys getting blown away or shot by either ray guns or actual ordinary guns.
Well,
yes, I've seen some of the Japanese animation, and a lot of it's very nice. And interestingly enough, a lot of the American animation, Saturday morning cartoon stuff, is being farmed out to Asia now.
And Japan.
I used
Zorro
to watch,
was animated in Japan.
Yes, I used to watch Ray Dean on Channel 22 when it was being aired, and that was it was beautifully done. Though, of course, violence is an issue. I mean, studies involving children have seemed very strongly to indicate that the more violence a child watches, the more violent his behavior is, and that you can't ignore that.
This is something that it is something you have to take into account when you write the stuff, and it's something we do try and take into account. I'm against gratuitous violence on television. And I don't agree with the people who say, hey, Tom and Jerry, boy, wasn't that great? Look, the cat got blown to bits. I never liked that stuff, and I don't think it's good for. I don't like it.
Okay, thanks very much for calling. KPFK, you're on the air. You have 4 minutes.
Hello, I'm curious. Have any of your guests at any time in the past or possibly in the future considered writing for comic strips that appear in fantasy magazines such as Heavy Metal?
I've discussed. I had a thing for Heavy Metal for a while, but it fell through.
I had a thing for Heavy Metal once.
No, I meant Well, I was talking about something with Julie Simmons for a while, but it fell through. So best not to discuss that. Actually, interestingly enough, I've been told that one of the scripts that I'm doing for the Hulk, which will be on this fall, is going to be made into a comic book, as an advertisement for the show. So in that respect, yes. But other than that, I've never done anything of that sort. It might be interesting to do. It's nothing I've pursued with any great endeavor. But it might be fun to do sometime.
Yes, and as for me, I haven't even thought of that. It's never come up. I'm not that much into comic books or comic strips. I haven't read Heavy Metal.
Really. Yeah,
So,
I frankly, I was considering doing something for a while, but I don't like the magazine. I don't like Heavy Metal. I find it really, sort of S&M and mindless violence and stuff. Don't tell Julie I said that.
and both of us are very busy with a variety of projects as it is. Michael's working on The Shattered World, and I'm starting a spec screenplay as well as doing articles and all sorts of stuff. So, busy times.
Again, you have to choose your priorities, what you want to do, and the time that you have, and everything. There's a lot of things that I would like to do that I would love to write more short stories, but at the moment I don't have the time.
No time. Anything else?
Oh, that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, we are almost out of time. We have Oh yes, oh no. And I want to read this one more time before we go on, and Terry is not there to tell me if I'm saying this right because your handwriting is very difficult to read. This is from the Academy of Science Fiction, Horror, and Fantasy. This is set up through them. If you say you are from Hour 25 on Saturday, if you go to the USC Norris Theater at 10 a.m., 12:30 p.m., or 3 o'clock p.m., you can see Free for Nothing, The Secret of Nim. Is that right? The Academy has done this. Is Dr. Donald A. Reed and his people have done this. And on Sunday at 10:30 a.m. at the Four Star Theater at Highland and Wilshire, you can see The Sword and the Sorcerer. All you have to do is go to these places and say you are from Hour 25, and they will let you in.
Yes, ask for Lefty.
Yeah, tell them Lefty
Bugsy
sent you. Yeah, one of those other things. Well, is there anything you'd like to say in your defense about any of these things? I have a question that'll probably take forever to answer.
Hit it.
But I'll hit it and you see if you can asymptotic question. Yeah.
Ask a subject. Never mind.
We have shows like Doctor Who in England, which have been on for how long? 20 years, maybe? Something getting on to 20 years. And a show like Star Trek was on for 3 years. We very rarely see a science fiction show on for more than a season, or maybe 2 at the outside.
Yeah, Star Trek was on for 4 years if you count the animated series.
Well, yeah, if you count the animated
series. That's a real completist.
Is there a difference in audience, a difference in attitude about the people who make it? What's the difference?
At the moment, there's quite a difference in the people who produce it and the people who buy it. Again, you're talking about an industry that is run basically by pure primal fear. You're talking about...
But it's the same in England, isn't it?
Not necessarily. The BBC, on which these shows such as Doctor Who run, is a government-sponsored network. There is a certain amount of stability to it. To a degree, yes, but I think not nearly as much of a degree. I mean, we're talking about networks that will literally kill a show after 3 airings because they feel that it's not, it hasn't built up an audience.
Yeah, see, I'm fairly amazed by Doctor Who. The kind of science and other things that get into it is very. I like it very much. It could never ever be done here. I mean, we're talking about network people. For instance, I had a Black Star script where I had a villain, Time Master, who had a time scepter, waved this time scepter at a desert, and it turned into a prehistoric jungle. And he said, "Here, I've transformed this into a jungle filled with prehistoric monsters, and this is on an alien planet." And the fellow from Network wrote, "Whoa! Would an alien planet have a prehistoric jungle? Would there be such a concept? Would the concept prehistory be on an alien planet?"
That's a real interesting question, though.
Would a planet have a prehistory?
Except that any planet that would have a civilization obviously would have a prehistory because that would be the period before the
Any
civilization
planet that
rose.
exists in time would have a past.
And I could not get it across them, and they struck that word, which made it make no sense at all when he waves his wand and suddenly there's a jungle, because it doesn't make any sense as regards his time power unless he says that it's prehistoric.
The point is,
how could you get Doctor Who on with that kind of mentality?
The point is, and it's been said many times before, you're dealing with people who don't know anything about story or anything like that. They know numbers.
Yeah.
They know money.
Which is a real shame.
Very good. Thank you. That was a terrific answer considering the length of that question. We could have gone on forever.
Thank
you, J. Michael Reeves.
Yes.
Better.
Thank you, Marc Scott Zicree.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Elaine Zicree, for doing the station break.
Yes.
Will you shut up? I'm thanking people.
Yes.
All right.
We'll give you the money now or
later? Later after the show. This is Mel Gilden right here. I don't know what's going to happen next week.
Thanks.
Mike has all the little pieces of paper that say what's going to happen.
And hello, Neptune.
Thanks
to Steve Bard for sitting in the other room.
Thank you very much. And we will be back next week.